And hello tonight. We're glad to have you join us. We're all here. I'm going to introduce everybody in just a few moments, but we're going to give you just a few moments to get online, join us if you're going to join us here tonight. And as soon as a few of you get online, then we'll go ahead and start in with all the inquiries and the questions and the fellowship that we have here together. We appreciate your being a part of our program here tonight, Bible Talk, as we look at joy in the midst of trials. Now, I know that's not exactly what we were talking about in the early stages of this particular night, but in the midst of it all, that's really what it's about. It's about the Lord Jesus Christ and what he does in the midst of all that we go through. You see, when we talk about health issues and health problems and things of that nature, there's a lot of things that go through our mind. And as they go through our minds and who deals with it and how we deal with it, we want to hear those particular stories. Now, the folks that I have with me tonight, I did promise you that we were going to have two families. Well, here they are. Me and my wife and my son and his wife. And I'll introduce them in just a moment. Before we do, I just want to start out here tonight as we think about disease and trials and health issues and health problems and all the things of that nature. When we think about all of those, oftentimes we think, well, somebody else has it worse than I do, or I have it worse than somebody else. When it comes to health issues and disease and trials and things like that, really nobody has it worse than another. In fact, as we think about this tonight, as we're dealing with this, we realize that even in the midst of the trials that we've gone through, we don't count ourselves to have more trials or have it harder than anybody else. When we think about, and I've always said this, that when you and I when we think about major surgery is when it happens to you. And so whatever you have going on that is major to you, that's major for you, regardless of what's going on in that way. It could be half of what somebody else is, but it's major to you. So it's a huge thing. So when we think about our lives, we're not really looking to, we don't really want to tell our story, but at the same time, we do, because in the midst of it, it can help, it can glorify the Lord, and that's really what we want to do. And so as we tell our story tonight, and as the three of them in particular tell their story, hopefully the Lord will be glorified, you'll be encouraged, and you will be helped in this way. In fact, as I think about all of the things that have gone on, it's almost like we just take it in stride. It's not like we're thinking, boy, this is so big that I don't know why everybody's not seeing this. But at the same time, we realize it is something that is big in our lives, but we deal with it in the way that the Lord has enabled us to. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And let me begin by introducing those that I have with me. Of course, you know myself from the morning preaching times, and appreciate those that have been a part of that you join me every morning during the weekday at 6:40 and just go through the scripture and be encouraged and helped in that way. Tonight, this is our second episode of Bible Talk, and this is really, once we get started, I'm going to turn around and we're just going to talk about the things that have gone on in our life, and how we deal with them and the way that they have affected us in that way. So with that, let me just introduce those that are with me. Right over here to my side here is my wife. In fact, let me stop here for a moment and say, really the two women that are really the biggest heroes in my life are sitting at this table. And a lot of this has come over the years, has come over time in such a way that the heroic part of them has come out more and more. And I was sitting and talking to Tori about this not too long ago, and just how proud I am just of where she's been and what she's gone through and how she's dealing with things that way, and just how the Lord has worked in her life. And so with that, introducing here my wife of how many years now?
37.
Oh, she got it right this time. So 37 years. And this is my wife. Next to her is my daughter-in-law, Tori. And next to her is my son, Silas. Now, with each of us, and you can all say hi. Say, hey, here we go. Yep. And we'll get right down. You see, the longer I talk, the less they get nervous. And so I'm going to talk for just a few minutes, because what I want to do is give you a brief summary of some of the things that have gone in our lives, and then I'm going to turn and we're going to be talking about these things. And so just a brief survey of what has gone on. As we think about the past, it was back some number of years ago, I believe it was in the 90s, that you actually went to the doctor, you found out you had polycystic kidney disease. So it was, so we found out that she had PKD, and we're like, well, what is that? We don't know anything about it, but okay, let's go home and let's get a pizza. That's kind of what we did. And so over, of course, the years, the disease began to take its toll. And back in 2003, Brenda had her first kidney transplant, and then that kidney had failed. And so about 5 years later, she had a second transplant that a friend of hers, a close friend of hers, gave her a kidney. And so from there, that kidney has been just fine. But all of the other problems kind of came along. A lot of other things happened in the midst of that. Many hospital stays, along with many battles of sepsis, as well as so many numerous things. I don't even think of them all. I'm sure that she'll lay out some of that. But we were just kind of talking this past week, and we were saying, if I have 9 surgeries in this year, does the 10th one come free? And so I think she's had maybe 9 surgeries. Is that right? You've had 9 surgeries this past year alone. And it just takes a toll on a person. But in the midst of it, Brenda has come out strong for the Lord in that way. God has shown himself mighty in her life. Now, across the table from me is my 5th son, Silas. And I'm not sure if he likes to be called the 5th son or not, but he is. He's not the 5th son. He's the 4th son. No, he's the 5th child, right? You're the 5th child, right? Not the 5th son, but the 5th child. Okay, I stand corrected. Now, by the way, this is live, so if the table falls, which it just might, we're just going to get up and smile. We're just going to keep on going. And so here's Silas, 5th child.
Correct.
3rd son? 4th son.
3rd
son. I have too many, and not enough, according to my wife. But so Silas, he also has the polycystic kidney disease, and this is he's one of 3 of the children that have that. And back about 5 years ago, is that right? About 5 years ago, you had a kidney transplant, and I was a donor for him. And then just about 2 months ago, 2 months ago? 1 month ago. See here, we're getting, a month ago, Silas had another kidney transplant. The first kidney was just too old for him.
That's right.
And so it just
words, not mine.
just couldn't last. It's since when do you put a 57-year-old body part into somebody that's young and vibrant and wants to move on? Nonetheless, that the Lord used that to give him more time, and he just had another kidney transplant, so he's still recuperating from that. Now, along all of this journey, Silas he spent some time on dialysis, as well as numerous times in the hospital, numerous surgeries that way. And then, of course, along this journey, Silas found this beautiful woman next to him. And this is Tori, his wife. And you guys are married now how long? Get it right.
5.5 years.
5.5 years. Okay, so they're still counting the halves. Brenda and I, we don't count the halves anymore. It's just whole or nothing. That's it. And so 5.5 years, and you knew what you were getting into, and but you didn't know everything that was going to come. And this past year, one of your daughters, you have three grandchildren that we have here by way of these folks. And so about 6 months ago, the oldest daughter, she began having some issues. And out of that, Tori, Silas, they found out that their daughter had leukemia. And she's how old now? 3 years old? I keep thinking she's like 5. And so...
She's boss.
Yeah, she is boss. All right, so here dealing with leukemia, and listen, like I said, this is right in the middle of everything. The fact that we're meeting here tonight, it means a number of things. It means that Brenda is still going through some surgical things in light of just all of the things that are going on in light of COVID, in light of her health. Silas just got done going through a surgical thing. Both of them are going through the chemotherapy with Harper and dealing with all of the things in light of that. And not only that, I did ask the matriarch if we should cancel tonight because her mom just passed away just a couple of days ago, and we're all dealing with that. We're all saddened by that. But and hence the box of Kleenex you see on the table, because somebody's going to cry, whether it's you or whether it's us here by the end of this time, and so it's all right in the middle of this. This is real for all of us. It's real in the very sense that we've all are dealing with this. We're all coming through these times, these heartaches, and we just really want to be a blessing to you. And so I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to turn and I'm going to turn and I'm going to ask these three some questions in light of where they are, in light of where they've been and what's going on. Before we do that, because Christ is really preeminent in all this, I've asked each of them just to be prepared, just to give a short testimony of how the Lord saved them. And so with that, we're going to hear from them, just a short testimony, and then we're going to go into some questions that hopefully will be of a blessing and encouragement for you in that way. So I'm going to turn to the matriarch. She's the boss. And so as I do, we'll hear from her first, and then we'll go right around. So Brenda, go ahead, start us out. How did you come to know the Lord? You get to talk now. It's all okay. I'm all done now, so there we go.
So I was born in North Carolina. I grew up in Southern preaching churches, and they preached hellfire and brimstone preaching, and I used to have nightmares that the devil and an angel were fighting over me, and I didn't know which way I was going to go. And then I remember when I was in my teens, I used to listen to a lot of music, and one of my favorite songs was I'm on the Highway to Hell. And that is not my favorite song now.
That's good to know.
I have so many other ones that benefit my soul, but I remember thinking, am I on the highway to hell? And so it caused me to start thinking about that. And then we moved from Chicago to Wisconsin, and that's where I met you. And around that time...
That came the downfall. Nonetheless, keep going.
Steve began witnessing to me, and then one day I just prayed and asked the Lord to save me, because hell was not any place I'd want to be. So,
and that one day was a day in Meriden, Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, it was Meriden, Wisconsin, when the Lutheran Church was there.
We went to a program or something,
right.
Didn't we, that night? Mm-hmm. Like a Christmas Eve program, or what was okay?
And it was a Christmas program, so guess I was thinking about the Lord and how he came to earth, and then I asked the Lord to save me, and then we headed back to my house and got stuck in the ditch, and anyways, made it
Was
back.
that when we had the blue car?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
I
right into
I
it.
have a quick glimpse of going in the ditch, but yeah, go ahead.
Anyways,
All right. So things
thus
at that
began my
point.
journey with the Lord.
Okay, things are different since that time.
Things are different now. I was saved. It must be.
All right. Well, praise the Lord for that. Tori, I'm going to get to you in just a minute, but let me quickly say that if you have any comments, any questions that you want to bring out to us during the night, at any time, Silas has his phone going. It's hidden by the camera, the box over there. But he's watching, and if you have any comments, any questions that you'd, especially questions that you want to bring out, we'll be glad to answer some of those as we go along here tonight. All right, Tori, you're up. What's your story? How did you come to know the Lord?
Well, growing up, we never went to church or anything, and I honestly didn't really know that there was a God. It was just never talked about. And in my 20s, I had people give me the gospel, and I told them I didn't need Christ because I liked my life, and he couldn't do anything for me that I couldn't do.
You had people in your 20s that were talking about the Lord?
People I worked with, yep. And
Okay.
then one still.
See, this is why we're doing this, because I didn't know that. So that's all right. Praise the Lord. All right, go ahead.
And I came to your church, and still I just wasn't interested. And looking back now, every time something hard came along, I would get depressed, and I would drink to fill that void. And then after Silas got saved, we had moved here, and he came here, and he told me that I was gonna spend eternity in hell.
Nice husband.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't my husband yet.
Oh yeah. Well,
But,
all right. There we go.
Well, I had people sharing the gospel with me a lot, and Silas told me I was going to spend eternity in hell, and I stormed off because I was mad at him for telling me that. And then I spent the next 3 days terrified because I knew I was going to hell, and I kept having dreams that I was so controlled by Satan that God couldn't save me, and I had a lot of doubt in him that he couldn't do it. And then when I believed that he could, and just everything from that night was different.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, praise the Lord. That's so refreshing to hear some of the things that you just said. So, what a blessing. All right, we've got a lot more to be talking about here tonight. So, Silas, go ahead.
Well, the short version is I grew up in a pastor's home, so I think I grew up with self-righteousness about me, and I walked around and would only allow myself to go so deep into a sin, even though I was blinded to the sin I was in. I would only allow myself to go so far, and I thought that made me righteous, and I thought that made it like there was something good in me, and I think I lived that way for a long time and thought myself above a lot of people because I was doing good and they were falling off the deep end. And after I had gotten sick the first time when I was on dialysis, there was a couple weeks where it was just on my mind to go to church, and I walked into this building and with the same attitude of I'm righteous and I should be here and I deserve to be here and I believe everything they believe, until a man challenged me and asked me the questions again. Do you believe that you're a sinner? Do you believe Jesus died for you on the cross for your sins? Do you believe you'll spend eternity in hell? And I answered him in such a self-righteous way. But the 2 days after that, I couldn't get it off my mind because I knew I believed in my head, but I didn't believe in my heart that he was those things. Like completely believe it. Like above all things that there was a God who created the earth, who came down and became a man and died for me. And the reality of that never affected me. And I never gave it a real thought and believed it wholly. And I was laying in my bed staring at the wall in the middle of the night, and it just wouldn't let me go until I was just like, I was submitted to believing him. And then I asked the Lord to save me and forgive me for running away from him. And And then that's how I got saved and everything changed.
Now that was, I missed it there for a moment because my mind was drifting.
Mhm.
But did you say you were in the hospital bed? Is that where it was?
Nope, I was in my own bed.
Okay, because I remember you were in the hospital during this time
Yep,
or thereabouts.
There was a couple, maybe a year after I got saved, I was still in the hospital.
So I seem to remember you being in the hospital maybe it was a week after you got saved. And I remember because you said you didn't tell me for 2 weeks that you had gotten saved, that the Lord saved you, and you were like, I just wanted to see if you noticed.
Yeah.
And of course, we did notice, but we weren't sure what was going on. But
Well, I remember calling you. I remember I was sitting on a toolbox, and it was when I first started working with Benaiah. And I was sitting there, and I just started asking you a bunch of questions. And I thought that you would notice there was a difference. I mean, afterwards, I thought that you would notice a difference.
My kids are always manipulating me, so I didn't know, what was going on. So,
Sure.
all right, appreciate that. As we think about, this is why we really want to bring out our testimonies, because it's really all about his story. It's not really about ours.
Mm-hmm.
And I do appreciate each of you being here, because I know this is not easy. Maybe it is for Silas a little bit, maybe a little bit more. But I know for both of you, it's like the last thing you want to do is be on camera and just be telling anybody about anything. But so I really appreciate you being here in spite of everything that's going on. Now, Brenda, take us back to the beginning. Back in 2002, back you know that things are not looking good for you. And you had a lot of thoughts going through your mind. It's like, what's going on with my body? I might have to go on dialysis. We know Silas did. We know that's not a good experience. But you had a lot of thoughts going through your mind. So take us back to 2002, leading right up to January, right? Was it January 2003 when you had your first transplant? And take us back to that time. What was going through your mind? What were some of the things you were dealing with, and in the midst of all of that?
Well, I remember in 2002 that I had been getting a lot of backaches, lower backaches, and then over by my kidneys, and then I had one night where I couldn't sleep at all because of the pain, and then it went to another day and another.
I thought you were going to say because of your husband, but
no.
Anyway, go ahead.
Inside my side,
That's
not by my
always
side.
happening anyway.
And so I went to the doctor, and they did some tests, and I knew right then by the look on the technician's face that something wasn't right. And then when I left, she said, well, I hope things go well for you. And that just seemed odd to me. So I was a little nervous, and then I got a phone call from our doctor that said I had PKD. And back then, not a lot was known about that disease. So much more has advanced since that first time. And then there was a point where I was just really tired. My kidney function was super low. I can't remember numbers. And it was very low, and I would fall asleep when I was trying to sweep the floor or trying to read with one of the kids, and
So you knew it had taken an advance step, and this the PKD was coming to a point where something had to be done.
because I had blood work and doctor's appointments with all that stuff.
Okay.
And something left my mind I was going to say.
So at the point at which you came and you understood that, a kidney transplant is something that has to happen.
Right.
What was going through your mind at the time? You had, like, kidney transplant. How long do you have? Things like that.
How long do I have to be with my family? So every day was nerve-wracking, and it was also great. It's kind of hard to explain.
So this is at a point at which I'm gonna give Brenda a minute to collect herself again, because she needs the Kleenex. And so in the midst of this was a tough time. In fact, I'll be the first to say that during this time I really didn't know the gravity of the situation, or maybe it was just that I just kind of let everything go, and but you were dealing with this in a whole different way, because in your mind your days were numbered.
Right. And I would be so tired that one day, I remember it was a Wednesday night after church, and I thought, it was a Monday night after church. I said, I am so done with all this. I'm so done watching my husband work so hard, and he comes home and he takes care of the kids, and they clean, and my children were amazing. They would help when they wanted to or could, and our children. And then it just came to a point that night, and I said, I'm done. I'm not doing dialysis. It's just time for me to die.
All right, and there.
So my kids can move on, and my husband can move on, and they can grieve, and life can go on for them, because I'm not living right now. And, I was crying out to the Lord, and we had set up an appointment so I could go on dialysis. And I said, Lord, I'm done. Unless you do a miracle, I'm done. 2 days later, I got a phone call, and that was a Wednesday night after church. And they said, how soon can you be to Rochester? We found a kidney. And the amazing thing to me was I had just been put on a list 2 months ago, and all the doctors, but your story is different. Yours was even sooner, I think. Wasn't it? Okay.
So the first kidney transplant, you were on a list, and there's normally what?
A 5-year wait, and 5,000.
I think at the time they said about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and that about 5,000 people die a year back then, waiting for a kidney.
And so 2 months later, here you are in the thick of it all. Don't want to go on dialysis. In fact, you had an appointment, I think, for dialysis.
For the surgery.
To be fitted for it.
What do you call that, Silas?
The fistula and so forth. And so days before that happened, here you come, and so you're crying out, but in the midst of it, you're looking for a miracle. Otherwise, you just didn't want to.
That was my answer. I was just done.
So what did you think when you got the phone call? Because that was a life-changing phone call.
I handed the phone over to you. I couldn't believe that was happening, and then I was nervous all at the same time. I had never had a surgery, never in broken bones, nothing. So this is crazy, strange.
So now fast forward for a moment. Mm-hmm. You went through the surgery, and now life is different. Now you're on medicine, all kinds of medications that way. But one of the things that was big in your mind was a second chance. So what was in your mind that way? I remember you wrote a short testimony, something like that. What was the name of it that you wrote? Do you remember the pamphlet that you wrote on? Something about second chance at life or living or something that way. What was going through your mind with that?
Well, I wanted my life to be a testimony to others, because God gave me a second chance. My life belonged to Him. I needed to do better than I had in the past. And then I found out.
Now, when you say doing better in the past, what are you referring to?
Well, I don't believe that I gave the Lord everything. I don't believe that I was being the kind of believer, follower of Jesus that I could.
I assume that you're referring back to the fact that you just wanted to give up, and
I wanted to give up, and there are just certain things that we just let slide, as believers, and the more I got sick, the less I let that slide, reading my Bible, praying, telling others about Jesus, and God just gave me an opportunity. It was like a wake-up call, and said, well, here's your opportunity to do this and to glorify Him. And then a month later, I found out my kidney was in failure, and it was glomerulopathy. I had to practice that word.
Okay.
So then I was in failure again, and so.
Okay, so in the midst of all of this, I mean, this is just how it goes. We go through trials, and we fail in them. But the Lord is gracious, and He's full of mercy, and He brings us through, giving us a second option, a second time, second chance to just glorify Him. And it's really, when the Bible talks about morning by morning, new mercies I see. Every day is another chance for us to glorify the Lord. And so we're glad for that. Now I'm gonna come over to these two for just a moment, and we're gonna come back to Brenda in the midst of many other things that have gone on with her. But I just want to scoot over to you, Silas, and as we're talking about the beginnings of kidney failure and things of that nature, you've got a whole different story. So bring us back to when you found out you had kidney disease, and when you were you went on dialysis. So bring us through that. What were you feeling? What was going on in your life? How'd you deal with that?
Well, I was 15 in high school when I found out, and I was actually in a regional cross country run, and I just remember turning right and passed out and woke up, and we went to the hospital to find out what was going on, and Mom went with me, and she said, or they told me what it was, and I just must have had high blood pressure and dehydrated, and then when I went there, they told me I had PKD. But it honestly didn't register with me. I remember sitting in the car with Mom, and I just laid it back because I was tired. And I was staring out the window, and Mom looked at me, and she's like, "Are you okay with that?" And I'm like, "With what?" She's like, "That you're really sick." And I was like, it wasn't until just then that it clicked that I was sick. I mean,
you guys must have the same bluntness or something.
But yeah, but it didn't really, honestly, I don't think it affected me too much after that. I think I went kind of on normal. It wasn't up until 5 years later that things just went downhill, and my function went down real fast. And then I think within a month of it starting to go down, I was at 6%, and I had to go on dialysis. I was on dialysis for 2 years, and within those 2 years, I had 15 different surgeries because of different things. And
you had 15 different surgeries? This runs in the family. I didn't even know it.
It's a good thing we're doing this tonight.
I
so
know.
You can find this
I'll tell you
out.
what.
yeah, I mean, and as far as
so you sat in dialysis for 2 years. I mean, I can't imagine a month in dialysis. You spent 2 years. How did you make it through that? What was going through your mind? I mean, what was happening at the time?
The first year I wasn't saved. So the first year, I remember the first time it happened to me, I kind of approached things in a very self-willed way. And I walked in there, tried not to think about it, did my thing, and they poked me in the arm. And, they have these massive needles, they're like nails, and they poked me in the arm. And I was trying to make it through, and within an hour of it left, of the 4 hours or whatever it was, I started to just panic, and that never happened to me before. Like, I was watching my blood come out, and my blood go back in, and it was just, it was like the situation with Mom, it's real. And that's when it kind of set in. So that first year, it's like, I think I spent most of the time just avoiding it. Like, anything I could do to distract myself during those 4 hours, and if somebody would come up to me, I would talk to them as long as I could so I could forget what was going on. But after that first year when the Lord saved me, it became like a time of relaxing. Like, I could just, like, those 4 hours, I don't have to do anything except sit there, and I can meditate, I can pray, I can read. And not that I did that every time, but it became a time of enjoyment versus pain or discomfort. And yeah.
So during any of that time or the subsequent time, did you ever feel like, I'm just not going to make it out of this?
Yeah, there was a lot of those times, but again, I think it was just my nature to just not think about it, and just convince myself that if I don't think about it, it's not real, and I'll make it through it, and that would happen, when both my kidneys are failing, and they would come in and be like, look, you need to go on dialysis or you're not going to make it 2 more weeks. And it's like that still didn't register in my head. It's like I just didn't want to admit defeat in the sense of like, I'm not going to die. And I think that was like my whole distancing myself to everything that was real. And it's like that's where the Lord came in and like made things real to me. It's like it was just too much for me to even handle, so I just never did.
So after that time, then of course you were, I don't know how long it was after that did you actually have the dialysis twice, or was it just one continuous time?
It was just 2 years straight.
Okay, so in between that time is when you came to know the Lord.
Right.
And now up to that time, you had been on a list for a new kidney.
Mm-hmm.
But what was, if I remember correctly, the hospital was looking at you and saying, hey, we're not sure we want to give you a kidney. Did I remember that right? Or was that something?
They were only saying that because I guess the situation for kids my age, between the ages of 18 and 22, they tend not to give them to them because they don't take care of them. So the percentage of them wanting to give you a kidney from the list is actually lower than somebody who's in their 30s or 40s.
So what went through your mind with that? Because it was like, hey, we're not putting you high priority right now.
Right. Well, at first it made me kind of angry, and I was just like, how dare you tell me I can't take care of myself? And the reality of it is like, look at yourself. You don't even care that you're dying. So why would you care about something that gave you new life?
Sure. Now, on top of that, you had talked to me one day and you said, don't even think about giving me your kidney.
Yeah, I was proud in every area. I didn't want help. I didn't want to admit I was dying. I didn't want to admit anything.
And so the Lord obviously turned all of that around. There came a point in time in which you and I connected, and it was like, hey, this just needs to be done, and the Lord brought you through that in that way. So now I just want to shift for a moment because we're really talking about beginnings. And as we talk about the beginnings, these things that happen early on. And so, Tori, I just want to bring back for you, coming back to 6 months ago. I think it was about 6 months ago that you found out here about Harper, and things were starting to happen. What was going through your mind when this was happening? Tell us a little bit. Lead us up through that. Some of the things that were going through your mind at the time.
Well, like with Harper, she's had, like my biggest thing was she has bruises on her legs. Now it's that she's a toddler, she falls, she plays hard. It's normal. And I even asked people, I'm like, did your kids have bruises? Like, is this normal? And it was normal. And she would have somewhat frequent fevers, but they're super short. I'm like, she probably picked up a virus. Like, it's a normal toddler thing. She's okay. And then one week she had gotten a fever. And for some reason, the word leukemia would not leave my head. Like, that's all I could think about was leukemia. And so I researched it. And the only two symptoms she had were the fevers and the bruises, which were common for toddlers. So I looked past it. And then a week later, she had gotten another fever. And so I was really doubting myself as a mother, and I didn't know if I should take her to the ER to get checked or keep her home because she just had a fever, and it's normal. And so that night I prayed that the Lord would let something happen to Harper that wouldn't doubt us taking her in if there was something more serious going on. And I had fever seizures as a kid, so I knew that that's one thing I would take her in for. And then early the next morning, she had a fever seizure.
Okay, and I'm not real familiar with a fever seizure, but obviously it's just like a regular seizure, but it's caused by a fever, I take it?
Her fever had spiked up to 107 and then dropped down to 97.
You never told us it got up to 107. That's Mom. But anyway, so a fever seizure, and now you're telling us, and that's why we have this time. So you took her into the ER, and what happened from there?
well, Silas was there and I was at home, and so I waited a few hours until he called me, and as soon as I picked up the phone, I could tell in his voice what was going on, and I hung up on him because I started crying hysterically, and so we talked about it, and I remember the first thing I did was I thanked the Lord, even though it wasn't what I wanted. I thanked Him for answering my prayer that night. So.
And your prayer was, hey, do something so that we know what we need to do, and that we should go into the hospital or go further in that way. All right. So now you kind of stopped right there, like, okay, I'm done talking about this, but let me ask you, because of this, I mean, that's what a challenge to be able to thank the Lord for something that is going to change your life. And it is changed your life, hasn't it? And so how have you brought that forward? So here you are, and you're saying, "Thank you, Lord, for this." Has that something that has gone forward, or are there challenges that come that cause you to doubt that, or where is that?
I feel like for the most part, what I've been trying to do is, out of every situation, I find something good in it. I mean, I don't always.
Now let me stop. I just have to ask this: is this new for you?
Yes.
So how would you have handled this before?
I feel like I would. I mean, I still get angry once in a while, but I feel like I would have gotten bitter and angry, and I would have gotten depressed, since that was the big thing. How I handled situations was being depressed about it. So I don't know.
All right. All right. Well, it's, what a blessing, because, the Bible does tell us in everything give thanks. And this is a huge situation where we're called upon. And I assume for the both of you that you both have likewise come to a place in which you have to give thanks in your situation for the Lord. I mean, has that worked out for you, Brenda? Mm-hmm. And so, with yourself, you went on another 5 years. Your kidney was failing. You had another transplant. This one was by a close friend, mm-hmm. And it was almost like, okay, finally we can get past all of this. But fast forwarding, and I know we're running short on time, but as you fast forwarded, and now you're all of these surgeries, all these things come by. I mean, what were some of the surgeries for, just off the top of your head?
Well, I had been in Texas and got sepsis.
Oh yes, we were in Texas doing some hurricane relief for some friends, and mm-hmm. and in the midst of that, she got sepsis. We didn't know what that was. Mm-mm. And I remember talking to the doctor. I'm like, can you kind of hurry up with the diagnosis and get her better, because we got work to do. And Brenda you took it gracefully the whole way along. And but this was something. Sepsis is that which is it could kill you. Right. And you've battled this now 3 or 4 times. What's gone through?
Maybe 4 or 5 times.
Okay, so 4 or 5 times. Thank you. What's gone through your mind? I mean, as you look at all of those times, how have you handled that? What's gone through your mind in light of just how the Lord is dealing with you? How's that worked out for you?
Well, you had asked me to name one surgery. So I had sigmoid colon removal, and that was just one. But I found myself praising the Lord, and I was so excited to be in the hospital, because every doctor, every nurse, or whoever came in, I saw it as an opportunity to tell them about the Lord, because that's what I wanted to do when I had my first surgery and my second surgery. But once again, I kind of got lost. I needed to return to Him, and He showed me how. And I got sepsis and diverticulitis and a whole bunch of other things. And so I've had so many amazing adventures and talks with people And I go back and I think about it, and I wrote it down in a book, so I'll pray for these people. And I just can't even tell you how exciting it was to be in the hospital, even with 103 fever. A couple times, that's not super high, but not like 107. Oh my goodness. And I don't know, is that, you know.
So in the midst of all of the time that you spent in the hospital, obviously, we can talk and say it's an amazing time, it's everything is good, and it really has. I mean, you've been a shining testimony in the midst of that, and have been an encouragement to all of us. I know, Silas, you even talked about it in light of when you're in the hospital, and just really we need to be like Mom. That's what everybody was saying. But now, I know that in the midst of that, there is a downside. There is a darker side. So what were some of the things that you had to deal with?
Well, there were times when I was angry and I didn't understand, because how could I serve the Lord and be this sickly person? It goes totally against what I wanted. And I can remember taking my medications and just opening them and throwing them across the room and saying, I am done with this. And that didn't help, because I had to pick them all up to make sure the grandkids didn't get them. And there are times when I felt lonely, like I could be in a room with you and I would still feel lonely. I wouldn't have peace. I wouldn't understand. And I battled with God's love for me and what his purpose was. I still do that occasionally.
So what brings you out of that? What is it that helps you in the midst of that? I mean, if you're talking to anybody else and you just say, look, when you're here, this is what you need to think. What do you think during those times?
I absolutely love hearing music, and I'll hum music or sing music, and verses that I've memorized.
Now, when you say music, any particular kind of music, or?
Well, hymns, because they're solid. I can go to them and I can identify them with these people who went through this, because these songs were written by people who went through something, and I can identify that. Safe in the arms of Jesus, and I will glorify the Lord. Probably aren't the titles, but those are the phrases.
Sure. Okay. All right. Anything else that comes to your mind in light of just that encouraged you through those times, or that even now you still look to?
Isaiah 40:31, my verse, my special word from God. He says, I will,
They that
wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And our grandson, every time I'm with him and I see an eagle, I quote that verse to him. And the other day he came home and he said, Grandma, I saw Isaiah today, because we named all the eagles Isaiah.
Well, and that is true. Everybody that knows you, anybody that knows you well enough, they know that you see an eagle, you quote Isaiah 40:31, and I even catch myself saying it, at different times, or at least thinking about you in the midst of it. So now, Tori, let me come back to you here for a moment. Now you're fast forward. Now you're going through chemotherapy. You're traveling down to Rochester multiple times. You've gone through multiple hospital stays. Harper herself has had a tough time. In the end, I really want you to let us know what's gone through in all of this. How has it worked through? What's affected you? What's encouraged you? What's helped you in the midst of all of this? But tell us a little bit about Harper. What happened to her through this time?
Her attitude has changed a lot since she has first gone through. She's lost her hair, but I've noticed There are times though. I mean, she's still scared. Like every time she has to get access.
Now let me interrupt you just for a minute, because when we went back to the beginning, and I know you were kind of fast forwarding everything, but you go back to the beginning, and I remember she was gaining a lot of weight.
Yeah, she was on steroids right away, and she gained 5 pounds, which looked like 30 pounds on a little 3-year-old. And she
What was going through your mind when you saw your daughter? Yeah, I mean, just kind of ballooned out. I mean, I was only 5 pounds, but
I mean, I cried every time I looked at her. Like, just her appearance was different, and her attitude, like, she just wasn't Harper at all, and it was hard to see.
okay. And so during this time, she gained the weight and so forth. Anything else going on with her and her body? I mean, things that would stand out in your mind? I remember different times when I would go to pick her up or something, she was hurting, or it would hurt her. But what was going on with that?
Her bones hurt a lot, and her skin is really sensitive, especially with the chemo that she gets. So there are times where she is in, well, I think anyways, that she's in pain. And every once in a while now too, she'll say that something hurts, but it's not for long.
So now up to that point, she still had all of her hair, full head of hair, but then there came a point in time, when did you notice that her hair starting to fall out?
It was in the middle of her hardest phase, so about 5-6 months in, and she would be eating, and her plate of food would just be full of hair, and you would run your hand through her head, and your hand would be full of hair, and Izzy kept pulling wads of hair out, and
okay.
and so I told her that we were going to cut her hair that night, and that's all she talked about all day, and she was excited to cut her hair off.
All right, she was excited. How did you feel when you had a glob of her hair in your hand?
I did a lot better than I imagined I would.
Because you kind of expected it to happen, right?
Yeah, we were hoping we would skip that side effect and she would keep her hair, but yeah, we kind of knew it would eventually come. So I mean, the first handful of hair, I cried a little and it was a little bit hard, but I think I handled it a lot better than I originally thought I was going to.
All right.
So.
Okay, so now fast forward, keep on going then. I mean, so now all these effects have come about. She eventually did gain or lose weight, which they said that would happen.
Yep, once she came off her steroids, she had lost weight, and she's been staying pretty stable with her weight.
Okay, so then of course it wasn't too long ago. I think it was Christmas. Was it Christmas Day? That she had a bunch of her uncles shaved their head because hey, we want to be just like her, and I think Silas did too. He's going back there a little bit.
Silas did it with her.
Oh, you did it with her, and then the others did.
Silas, tell what you did.
I did it with her.
There we go. See, let her shave his head.
Okay.
That's
So now she's gained her weight back. You're still going to Rochester, still all these things. What are some of the things that have encouraged you, and that continue to encourage you throughout this whole process? Not an easy process. I can't imagine. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think my biggest thing this year is just trusting in the Lord and prayer, which I'll admit I have not been good at either one of those. And like this year, I feel like has been our toughest year, but yet our best year at the same time. And I mean, Silas has been very encouraging too. Like anytime I feel like I'm down, he will give me the gospel and try to encourage me that way. So that's helped a lot. And I think just trusting on the Lord with everything, even if it's good or bad, has helped me have peace over the situation.
All right. Appreciate that. One of the things, as you mentioned, your husband is people in your life. And of course, a real big thing for us in our lives is church, is fellowship, and other believers. Have other believers, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but have other believers been an encouragement or a help in the midst of this time for you?
Yes. Am I supposed to say who or?
No. Just more of just the nature of it. Just what have others done for you to encourage you in this time? I mean, real down-home encouragement, not just, oh, that was nice. Something that really affects you.
Well, there's one of the women that I talk with, and she tells, like one time she told me how our family and our relationship has encouraged her, which I don't see how I can be encouraging, but knowing that someone thinks I am has helped encouraged me, and just the amount of support we have gotten from the church. Like, as soon as everyone found out, everyone stepped up and helped us in some kind of way, which was a huge relief.
Yeah, everything from financially to raking your yard to
Watching the girls, cooking food, just little things.
and even down to visiting you when you're all in Rochester and that way. I do remember, and this is what a testimony it is for just being a part of a church, a body of believers that cares for its family. And I remember, Silas, we had talked, and we were like, maybe we should get a GoFundMe page or something like that. And I was talking to some others about it, and I'm like, okay, we finally decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to trust the Lord to do what He's going to do. And Silas, how would you describe what the Lord has done, just in light of financially, not specifics, but just generally? How would you describe what the Lord has done by way of not only church but others in that respect? How would you describe that in your way?
Well, I think it's one of those things where you don't necessarily want to have to worry about it, and there was such a big help in that specific area that it didn't affect, like, we didn't have to worry about anything. We could just take care of Harper, take care of what was going on, and not think twice about it. And in that sense, it was just a massive relief for the both of us. And again, it's like one of those things where you're like, I don't want to say that we need that help, but at the same time, when it happens, it's a huge blessing and an encouragement. And specifically in the church, it was humbling because I didn't think that people cared. You know they care, but when somebody does something that big for you, it's humbling because it was more just pride on my part versus like they actually didn't care. And so I think it was humbling for the both of us, and we had that conversation where we're just like, we're just fools. These people care about us and want to help us, and we just neglect that. So it was just so much bigger than the financial. It was about how much they cared for us and loved us and wanted to help us sincerely, and specifically in the church.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't expect that, did you?
No.
And and we ourselves neither. We thought, okay, maybe there'd be a little bit of help, but it was a sincere outpouring of fellowship and compassion and love, and it still is, and it's just a blessing, in that way. As we think about, I was thinking about Job and all the suffering that he went through, and then oftentimes we don't compare to Job, but he lost family, he lost health, he lost all those things, but and I have never heard any of you say we've got it worse than somebody else. So tell me a little bit about how you think about that in light of just other people and what you're going through right now, because what you're going through and what we're going through it's a real thing. It is right now. You're still making trips to Rochester. That's going to go on for how long?
2 years.
So the whole process, about 2 years. And so you're still going to go down there, still going to be taking the chemotherapy, whatever drugs they have in that respect. and so when you consider that this isn't something that you say we've got it worse than somebody else. So how's that work in each of your minds? What are you thinking when it comes to this, and in regard to everybody else, and how do you come to grips with you've got this and you're going to have to deal with it. You've got a new kidney. You're going to have to take drugs the rest of your life. There's a possibility that could even fail. What are some of the things that go through your mind? We're going to have to wrap things up here pretty quick, but just to get your thoughts, I mean, right now, where things are at with you.
Well, I think when it comes to thinking of ourselves better off or not as bad as other people, or they're worse off than us or whatever, like we say all the time that it's like this has just become our life. It's not like a burden. It's become light. It's become something where we get to get closer to Harper. We get to figure out where we're at spiritually. We get to endure things where it says a number of times, count it joy when you fall into temptations. It's like we're constantly being put in a position to where we can experience the Lord more in a deeper way. So when you say, when I see people worse off, I more look at it not necessarily the situation they're in, but how they're able to deal with it and who they go to in that situation, because that's what's going to make it hard. I saw a woman who had 2 heart surgeries in 1 year, or heart transplants in 1 year. And I'm looking at that circumstantially, that's way worse than mine, but her attitude was like flawless. Like she was just enjoying life. And we talked about the Lord and about where she was at spiritually. And it was just like her situation was that she loved the Lord. Her situation wasn't that she had 2 heart transplants. So I don't know if that will make sense, but
Sure.
But when I think of people like they're less than me, I think maybe I just see that they don't have hope. Is not what I see versus the situation that they're in.
And of course, you spent a lot of time in the hospital down that way, not only yourself being in the hospital, but also with Harper.
Right.
And you had plenty of time to talk to different people. You found some that had hope and some that didn't. And just from what you've told me at different times, you just have a real drive just to be able to encourage people in that way and give them hope in that way. Tori, what's going through your mind that way?
Well, like kind of what he said. Let me catch myself.
Sure.
I got nervous.
Yeah.
Well, like the whole better off than, or having it worse than someone else. Kind of like what you said at the beginning. I see it as their situation or their trial is tough to them, and that doesn't make it any less or any more serious than what we're going through. Because everyone just goes through different trials at different times, and not to compare stories. I guess.
And what would you tell somebody who's going through the same trial that you're going through?
I don't know.
Anything?
I mean, just to trust in the Lord, and
What would you trust the Lord for? What does that mean to you to trust in the Lord?
that His plan is.
In His, I mean, no, I understand.
Like, whether it's good or bad, the situation or the journey,
Okay.
whether you have good times or bad times, is all of the Lord, and I guess to be thankful that you're there.
And that is a huge part of the journey. And I appreciate you saying that because, the Bible tells us to trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. And oftentimes we find ourselves going through life trying to lean on our own figuring of how this is going to work out, and we just plummet. We just don't have any joy, any hope, anything. But when we trust the Lord, who is sovereign and who is providential in everything that He does, He cares for you, doesn't He? And you know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And because He cares for you, He's always going to do what is best. And I often remind myself, the Lord always does what is best, and I can't do better than Him. And so always best to trust in Him. So now, Brenda, you're still in the middle of everything. You've got surgeries coming up in the next month or so. and hopefully things are going to get better even from there. But you know what? I mean, we're pretty frank here. You don't know what holds tomorrow.
No.
So what is it? Talk to us about this. We're going to have to close here. We've been here quite long enough, and appreciate your hanging in with us. But as we asked Brenda this question, we're going to close with this here tonight. And I apologize. We could have gotten into a whole lot more detail about other things. I know that Silas and Tori are relieved that I didn't ask how their marriage was in the midst of all of this. And what was going through and how they dealt with that. And I'm relieved that my wife didn't look at me and ask the same question. Maybe we'll deal with that in another time, in another episode, how to deal with all the marriage conflict that comes just by way of having troubles in our life and not really looking to the Lord, but how he brings us to that. And I think they would testify as well as myself and Brenda that whatever conflicts come our way, we can trust the Lord in the midst of that, and it can make our marriages better. In fact, before I let Brenda finish, I'm going to ask these two, has your marriage did it get better or did it get worse?
I thought it got better.
Okay. You thought it did? Does that mean you're not really
Well, I don't know
sure
if
right
he's on
now?
the same page.
I would say that it got better. I think when something like this comes along, it's like I was saying earlier, it's an opportunity to go through a trial and go through it with the Lord. And I think what separates a husband and a wife in any situation that's tough between them is when they kind of go their separate ways. And I think that happens sometimes. But I think we both have the understanding that we need to have the Lord hold us together. And we come back to that, and that brings us closer, and we know each other in ways we never did before. We're more open, we're more transparent. We know the other person better than we did before because of things like this, and going to the Lord in those things.
Well, what a blessing. And Brenda, why don't you go ahead and you have a comment on any of that?
Amen.
Amen. Okay. In light of that, I would say, boy, I've not been the best husband through the years. I haven't reacted to things in the way that I should have. But I will say this, that in the midst of everything, the Lord has really shown himself strong, has given me a whole lot more love for my wife than I ever had, has given me a whole lot more appreciation. And when I see her, I honestly, when I said in the beginning that she is my hero and the others sitting at the table as well, is that I just thank the Lord. She's a strong woman. I know she's gone through a lot of things, but she has looked to the Lord. She has depended on him. She's encouraged her in her own faith, in her own walk. She continues walking with the Lord. And what a blessing that is. And it's a testimony to me. Every time I see her open the scripture, every time I see her in a new Bible study book, every time she's just excited about helping someone else out, all of these things. But now let me finish up here tonight by turning back to Brenda and asking her this question that I mentioned before, which is, hey, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And this has been something that you have dealt with a lot through the years. You don't know about tomorrow, and I don't know about tomorrow. And the truth is that none of us know anything about tomorrow, but it becomes a little more real to some of us, and it's been real to you. So, how are you thinking about that? How do you work through that process of, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I might be in the hospital again. Everything might be fine. My kidneys might go. Something else might go. It's a constant thing. So how do you deal with that constant in your life? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but go ahead.
Well, sometimes I deal with fear, and I have to remember that I don't need to worry about that. I need to just trust the Lord because he loves me, and nothing's going to happen to me that isn't going to benefit my walk with him. And that's the most important thing in my life, is my walk with him. And sometimes I deal with feeling alone. And I know I'm not. I know he's there. I know my family's there. But that's just what happens. And there's a bunch of other things that go through my mind. But every once in a while, that joy, more than once in a while, there's a joy in knowing that God loves me so much that he's allowing these things to happen so that I can know him more. I can serve him better. And
we wouldn't wish this on anybody else.
no, I would not want anyone to have to deal with any sickness or sorrow, not just things that I have, because everybody has their own battle and it's theirs, and it's their battle. I don't have your battle. I don't have their battle. I have my battle. I used to think, I wonder what it would be like if I were by myself. Everyone always calls me Steve's wife. And I would wonder about that. And then the Lord gave me the opportunity in 2003 to find that out. And I can stand on my own with the Lord. Not that I want to, but I'm awful glad he's on my side.
And I appreciate that. In the midst of all of this, it's really put a huge mark on us in the sense that death seems to be always around the corner. Now, when you think about this will be our final question here tonight. When you think about this, because when it comes to Harper, without treatment, she wasn't going to make it. And there's great hope that she'll make it, but yet even in the midst of that, there's still those percentages. When it comes to kidney failure and so forth, there's just there's that aspect that death, it can be right around the corner, and it is for all of us, as well as for myself. And so, just a quick word: when you think about death and dying in eternity, what comes to your mind? Just right off the top of your head here, without thinking too much. Anyone, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll pick on you. But any of the three of you.
Well, to Jesus I surrender.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Go ahead. What comes to your mind?
I don't know.
All right.
Sometimes
I know
that's an answer.
this is on the spot. If when you think about today that tomorrow could be Harper's last day, it could be your last day. What comes to your mind when you think of that?
Just eternity. I'm thankful that I get eternity in heaven, and I hope that Harper is young enough that God would have mercy on her too if she were to die today
Okay.
or tomorrow.
And all the more reason that you give her the gospel too, isn't it? All right. Silas, go ahead.
When I think about death in my own life, I think about, who I serve and what my purpose is, and even more so, how much I want to be doing that before tomorrow comes, and it's a constant reminder of how much I fail, but also a constant reminder of God's grace. As far as when it comes to others, as I look at them the same way, because it's just the reality of things. Because if I'm dying, so is everyone else. And so I as it comes to my wife or to Harper, it brings I need to love them and care for them the way that the Lord would. And I can't do that unless I know who the Lord is and how he loves. And I can only do that through a relationship with him. And so it brings this sensitivity to I need to be more like the Lord so that I can live my life more like the Lord, whether it's my life towards others or just my relationship with him.
Sure. All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate all of you being here tonight. I know it's kind of awkward, me kind of asking the questions, and kind of being a little bit of not part of it, but yet I am part of it because in the midst of it all. But really appreciate your candidness, and I know that there's a lot more to say, and in the future I'm sure that we'll say more. in the midst of all of this. But for right now, I really appreciate your testimonies, appreciate your being honest and open and all of that. And we hope that this has been a help and an encouragement for you tonight as we think about just the joy in the midst of our trials. We know that there's sorrow in the midst of trials, and there's trials in the midst of trials, and there's temptations in the midst of trials. But in the end, the Lord has the answer. And like Job said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. And that's the testimony of each of us. We're not perfect. We're not super Christians. We're not anything that you want to put up on a pedestal, but we're just normal Bible-believing Christians who've been saved, love the Lord, and we just want to give the Lord the glory. We want to trust in him, and we want you to trust in him as well. And so tonight, if you've been encouraged, we appreciate that. If you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, you can reach out to any one of us. We'll be glad to show you the way of truth and of life, how you can be saved, how you can know it. With that, we're going to close our time. I do encourage you to be a part of tomorrow morning. If you get up early, 6:40 in the morning, join me as we continue on part 10 of the time of setting our affection on things above, as we go back to Colossians chapter 3 and then onward from there. I appreciate your joining us here tonight, and I'm going to close up. I'm going to actually try to figure out how to turn this thing off, and with that, we will go on to tomorrow and next week. Now, next week, we have 3 teenagers that are going to be giving their testimony, and we'll grill them real good. And you'll hear their testimonies and where they're at, the struggles they've gone through, and where they are even tonight. Looking forward to that. Until then, you have a great night, and we'll see some of you in the morning, and the rest of you will see next week. And so have a great night, and let me figure out how to turn our puppy off here. And there we go.